Oh, and guys, open up your chat if you can. Just click on that because we can be talking to each other.
Thank you for joining us. We'll start the webinar in about 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us. We'll start the webinar in about 1 minute. Good afternoon. Welcome to Yes We Can, the Hirshberg Entrepreneurship Institute's presentation of Yes We Can, Perspectives and Strategies for Success in 2021. Today's webinar features working with independent retailers with Mike Cianciarulo and Jimbo Someck. Before we get started, I'd just like to show you a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be utilizing the Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. If you look on the bottom of your screen and click on the Q&A, a window will come up. And if you type in your question on the bottom and hit send, our panelists will get your question. We'll be also using the chat, but that's mostly if you could please reserve that for any technical issues or any other information you'd like to share with the other attendees. That would be great. Otherwise, please just put your questions for the panelists in the Q&A. And with that, I'd like to introduce Gary Hirshberg to introduce our panelists.
There we go. Thank you, Carlene, and welcome everybody to actually the final in our series of webinars leading up to our 3-day Entrepreneurship Institute in a couple of weeks in early May. I will say more about this at the end, but just to say that we have gotten a lot of feedback and a lot of topics and a lot of interested speakers. So we will pick up this series again, probably in later May or early June. So just stay tuned. And with New Hope Network, of course, we'll get the word out to all of you. I'm really excited about today. It's a great way to go out because, you know, if you stop and think about how this series began, it really began a year ago as COVID was, you know, we were all bewildered about what to do. And, you know, one of the key questions is what to do when nobody's going shopping to stores. And so we sort of pushed our way through a whole series of visits last spring with distributors and brokers and retailers, and obviously plenty of manufacturers, and obviously focused on e-com. We picked it up again in the fall. We picked it up again in the early part of this year to see how people were doing. And of course, we've seen explosive growth in the organic and immunity and wellness sector. We've seen fantastic growth in e-com, but of course, the retail sector has been challenged, and primarily not just with store traffic, but also with customer service. You know, us suppliers have had a hard time keeping up. It's been a lot of SKU reductions, as we've heard. There's been a lot of need to for both the retailers and us processors to rethink our offerings, much more focus on value. For example, for all of those hungry college-age kids and other kids who are home, not going out, families feeding larger numbers. But of course, also there's been a heightened interest in wellness. And you know, we have today two, I have to say, truly iconic leaders. Well, really three, with my wonderful co-moderator, who I'll introduce in a second. Folks who've been at this for a long, long, long time, in many incarnations, who can ground our conversation with not just how they've been doing through the pandemic and where things are now, but also what they want and how we as suppliers and vendors and partners, how we can support them in the next phases. And so, as Carlene said, Mike Cianciarulo is the president of EarthFare Supermarkets. And if you don't know EarthFare, I mean, you're missing something. It's just absolutely been a legendary, epic, critical partner for most of us. We started Stonyfield back in EarthFare a gazillion years ago. In '97, though, he was president of Gooding's Supermarket, which I think a lot of folks know, and he oversaw 18 upscale stores in the Central Florida area. Actually, they opened on a Disney property, which was an interesting story. In '98, he did join EarthFare as president and CEO, was able to grow the company from 3 stores to 15, and also had its own warehouse. But then in '08, Mike sold EarthFare to a private equity firm. But then in 2019, turned around and with a group of local investors bought back the EarthFare brand and the original store in Asheville, or if you're from Asheville, you say Asheville. That's a New England bit of snobbery right there. No, I love Asheville. And Mike joined as an investor consultant, and of course, you know, can't get the retail out of Mike or Mike out of the retail or whatever. But anyhow, he was named president, and now EarthFare has opened 21 stores. And by July, we'll have 27 stores in 7 states. This is during COVID. So I'm really excited, Mike, to have you here and to have you tell us that story. And of course, a guy who definitely needs no introduction is Jimbo Someck, who's been actually in the industry since before me. Can you imagine somebody so old as that? And he looks, you know, like 35 years old here. That's his hair color he's got. Jimbo has been literally, you know, a part of the industry since it was not even an industry. In '84, he opened his first Jimbo's Naturally store, and now he's opened 4 more Jimbo's. I'm not sure if that includes the complicated one that you've had at the mall, so you'll tell us that story. Maybe that's a bad memory you don't want to know about, it would be reminded about. But Jimbo's been, honestly, I use the word iconic, but really a leader and spokesperson for independent natural food stores, but also as a conscience of reminding us all why we got into this in the first place. You know, as the natural foods industry has been expanded into so many other incarnations, you know, I consider Jimbo one of the keepers of the flame, one of the folks who and if you go to his stores, you see what I'm talking about. I mean, it's just an absolutely magnificent testimonial to all the reasons that we're all in this space. And he's done tons of service, and as Corinne well knows, on boards, as has Mike. He's been, you know, also on the non-GMO Project Retailers Advisory Committee, and his stores have taken leadership roles on everything, on labeling GMOs, on organic, and tons of, you know, he's eliminated plastic bags. I mean, I really, honestly, the bio is too long. because he's such an old dude like me. But nonetheless, love having you here. Thank you, Jimbo, and I'm eager to get to you. But I also want to say, we also have Corinne Shindelar here, my friend who most of you know. Corinne's been engaged with us at the Hirshberg Entrepreneurship Institute for a while, but we go back a long, long way. She's sort of seen it all, been on the retail side, been on the brand side, but also has been really catalytic because, as more and more, we'll call them conventional or larger chains have seen the growth and the vitality and wanted a bite of the apple, the natural and organic apple. Corinne was one of those who recognized really early, as did Jimbo, as did Mike, that independent natural retailers need numbers, need organization, need cooperation to be able to compete. So Corinne was one of the founders of NCG, and of course we had Ben on earlier, and obviously also one of the founders of Infra, and was actually the executive director, CEO of Infra for many years, and these days is now advising, sitting on boards, helping a lot of brands. I'm fortunate in having had Corinne join us at Beyond Broth at Grace's Goodness, and again, really thrilled to have you here with us. So thank you, Corinne. So the program is very simple. You're used to it. Mike's going to start, tell the story, talk to us about how we can all be better partners, where they're going. And Mike is the first to tell you that the EarthFare in its various incarnations has not always been the easiest. So he'll be talking a lot about how EarthFare also is changing and adapting. And then we'll pivot to Jimbo, and then we'll open this up. So with that, Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. I'm going to start with the major events that happened in 2020 with the Lucky's bankruptcy filing, with 32 stores operating and 17 under construction, and then shortly after that, in the first of 2020, EarthFare filed bankruptcy with 50 stores. And so we started brainstorming back then about how could we save that EarthFare brand. I spent a lot of years there. Randy Talley, the co-founder of EarthFare, was involved. Dennis Holsing, a local investor, owns many companies, and the major investor of EarthFare, myself and some local investors said, can we keep this brand alive? Our number one goal was to get the original Asheville, North Carolina store, which was the number one highest volume store, and acquire the rights to the name. That was important. If we could do that, we could maybe make something happen. And after we accomplished that, we thought maybe 2 or 3 stores we could do possibly. And then the discussion went to 4 to 5 to 6. And if Caroline, if you could show the first slide of where we're at today, and this crazy game of opening stores. We now are in 8 states. We have 20 operating stores right now. Our 21st store will be opening in downtown Orlando in the next couple of weeks. We'll have, by the end of the summer, the other 6 are under construction. We'll have 27 stores. And so we're really proud. We kind of spread out, but it's coming very, very fast. But the main thing I'd like to say, how could we ever accomplish this without some great EarthFare team members? We were so fortunate to get a lot of the directors back with us. And if it wasn't for those hard work and the 7 days a week and the long hours, it wasn't for the vendors, the brokers, and for our major supplier, Unify, to make this happen, because we changed deliveries and opening dates and everything like that. It could have never been done. So my thanks goes out to what we have accomplished. The next slide, if you would Caroline. To give you an idea of our stores, we of the 27 that we're now responsible for, 25 are existing EarthFare stores. The size of these stores are all about 25,000 square feet. We have 1 new store that's under construction in Virginia, which will be our new kind of prototype store. And we have acquired a North Carolina retailer that will be opening in the next couple of months. When we took over these stores, and of course they look beautiful as you look at the picture. A lot of them were run down, needed painting, needed cleaning up. Some were completely equipped with equipment, even small wares in the stores. Some were gutted out. And when I say gutted out, if you ever been through a bankruptcy, when they remove equipment, they actually gut these stores out. So we had a lot of work to do to put these stores back in place. It was hard finding equipment to get these stores open in such a fast time. And to open 20 stores in 8 months is quite an accomplishment. I remember Dennis, the owner, asking me, I said, I've opened 15 stores before, but it took me 8 years to do that. So, to open 20 in 8 months is, again, compliments to the team and the other vendors and brokers that helped us make this happen. And some of the challenges, I guess, in the opening, when you think about opening in COVID, we're meeting in meeting rooms with masks on. We didn't have a corporate staff. We had to put that together very quickly. Again, fortunate enough that, EarthFare did a lot of things right, and we were able to capture those things. So a lot of the EarthFare directors joined back with us as we put this company together and as we grew it over time. We were working remotely. We didn't have an office, and think about 20 stores without an office. That was a real challenge. Staffing the stores. I think the most important person, I think, in our company are store directors, store managers. And we were fortunate enough to probably 95% of our stores were being run by prior EarthFare store managers. So staffing seemed to work out pretty good because they were able to reach out to department managers and even hourly team members. So they joined us, and so it made it easy from a staffing standpoint during COVID to open these stores and staff them. The other challenges we had, some of the COVID restrictions made it easier because we didn't have to open, we couldn't open hot bars, salad bars, juice bars, bulk food departments. So it was a little easier job getting the stores up and running. So in that case, the COVID restrictions made it a little bit easier. But we had other issues like Instacart, curbside delivery. We knew that was a must. We had to get that up and going as fast as we could. Another challenge, EarthFare had a fantastic private label, and we opened up with no private label except the local ones that Unify have for us. That's something that we're pushing on very hard, and we hope to have that in the next couple of weeks to at least start off with 100, 150 items and go slow on private label, and they're not going to overdo it. And of course, reaching out to the best quality that we can find in those labels. The other challenge opening, I keep mentioning COVID, but that was kind of what we did. But beer and wine, we couldn't get beer and wine licenses. I mean, everything was delayed. As everybody knows, you can't do that. So we opened a few stores during the holidays with no beer or wine. Presently, we have 5 stores that still don't have their beer and wine license. It's all in the process. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, and some additional sales that we're missing. The promotional planning, the lack of, probably to the COVID, was another positive move in a way, because we didn't have, our directors weren't spending times on a lot of promotional planning because they could spend more time in the stores, because everybody kind of backed off of that they were more worried about just getting the supply into the stores. And probably the last thing that we missed were really, the traditional grand openings of stores. We were very quietly opening stores because of the issues and stuff with too many people. So we had more soft openings, and we hope to come back with something more substantial in regards to the grand opening events as we go. But all in all, it's, again, the team, the hard work to put in these stores. I'm very proud to be a part of it. It's a great opportunity. And if you could now, Carlene, to the next slide of what we stand for. And, coming from the conventional world, this was all new to me when I joined after working at Goodings for a lot of my retail career, our food philosophy and how strong it was and how strong it is with our team members, and how we stuck by this all the way through, and really believe in it. The customers believe in it. We promote it every chance we get. For every community event we have, we promote that. It gives the customers the assurance we're watching out for the products we sell on our shelves. The next slide, Carlene, is the food list, and these are you can't read these, but all the ingredients that we don't allow in our store, and we've done a great job of this. and we have, if a customer ever finds any of these ingredients in a product, they bring it to our attention. And I think so far it's happened with one product, a local producer of a product couldn't get this right kind of mayonnaise. They got a different type, and they found this mayonnaise. They have one of these ingredients. We took it off the shelf immediately, contacted the vendor, they corrected it, and we give the customer a reward or a gift card for that. But also in the ingredient things, even going to trade shows and things, we've had a lot of companies look at that and say, okay, we'll try to reformulate our product and change those ingredients. So over the years, we've had a lot of customers abide by our standards on the boot list. Next slide, Corinne. And our big push is going to be, and I know the vendor broker relationships with EarthFare in the past haven't been the best, and we plan to really improve those, and we plan to improve them. And I think with the reduction of item SKUs for manufacturers, just trying to produce the items that produce the volume, there's been a lot of lost items in the mix. And we really think the new item launch coming up right now in the future is going to be our lifeline to success. And I think we're the kind of company that can produce these products and get them on our shelves quickly, and really partner up in a true partnership with brokers and vendors throughout our community. So just a brief overview of our company. Again, I'm very proud to be here. Gary, I appreciate you giving us the time to share a little bit about the EarthFare story. And we have a lot of work ahead of us with 7 more stores to open in a very short time. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I just we obviously are going to get into a lot of questions here. It's a hell of a story, and obviously people are going to want to understand where you're headed, but also how what we can all do to help you. But let's pivot to you, Jimbo, and go to the other side of the country now. And you've had quite an adventure this year.
Well, I appreciate it, Gary, and I guess you're on the other side of the country too. So
Indeed.
Enjoying the West Coast. So before I begin, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper into our story and about our company, I do want to tell a little story about Mike, who I've known for about 10 years. He's kind of expecting a story about him, but he and like you said, Gary, once a retailer, always once you have it in your blood, you always keep it in your blood. And I think, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong as I tell this story, but you did, kind of grow EarthFare, and you sold it to an equity company, and then you kind of dallied on the retail side, but you really got into, I think you told me, into the mattress business, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Jimbo.
Yes, and I think you would tell me that the great thing about being in the mattress business was that you had no inventory. You didn't have to store it anywhere, unlike retail in the grocery side, where you had to have, you have to have a walk-in or things that are going bad. It's a mattress, and you didn't even touch it. It just went from, I think it was being made in China and being sent to the various different places that you sent them to. And so it was like, it was a great, money maker for you. As a matter of fact, we would joke that you were making so much money, you were stuffing the leftovers into your mattress.
Right.
But I think
he solved the problem of where to stash his cash. So.
See, that's exactly. Well, so you might want to wonder, for those people listening, why would Mike get back into the retail side? Well, the other part, I did some digging into this to find out what caused Mike to do this. So I guess a couple years ago, he went to China to visit, the people manufacturing the mattresses, and I guess they were doing some money laundering, so to speak, and they couldn't pay Mike his salary in the normal way. They had buried it with cash, and so Mike was left with all this money in China. And you're not allowed to bring cash across the states. You're only allowed, I think maybe $10,000 or something like that. So Mike relied on the conversations we had. Said, he took advantage of it. He said, well, I'll just stuff the money into a mattress and ship it to one of my warehouses and pick it up. Well, unfortunately, it was all great except that the mattress got shipped to one of his competitors. He was out the cash. He said, "I'm getting back into the grocery retail," when he didn't have to deal with it.
Oh, geez.
So that is basically a true story, right, Mike?
Oh, yes, Jimbo. Yes, sure. Yes, sir, please.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. So he's got his blood, and Mike has a wealth of experience. I've been involved with Mike with Infra since probably like 2007, 8. Corinne probably can give the date. And he's an extremely experienced retailer. I think he's crazy for doing all these stores in 1 year, but that's the way he rolls. But glad to be on the webinar with you, Mike.
Yeah.
So I want to give you a little bit of background about Jimbo's, and I think I want to take you back to about 20 years ago. I hired a consultant, and one of the things his main area of expertise was organizational development, and we would meet. He was a high-priced consultant to my way of thinking, but he really tremendously helped us to find out how to get to where we wanted to go. And he would ask me every once in a while, would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And, it took me a while to process that question. And I realized what he really wanted me to understand as a company. Where did we want to be, in 3 years, 5 years? Who were we? What direction did we want to take? And one of the things he used to say is, if you don't know where you're going, all roads would lead there. And so based on the question, we decided that it was really, really important for us to put together and craft a mission statement and what we call our Bill of Rights. And this would be the core to who Jimbo's was, and we would really live up to that Bill of Rights. Carlene, if you can show that on the screen, I'd appreciate it. Is it on the screen? Oh, there it is.
Yep.
So basically, and it's actually changed a little bit, but the vision is a piece of organic fruit in every child's recycled lunch bag. Now, mind you, this was over 20 years ago. It's now we've changed recycled to reusable lunch bag. And the Bill of Rights really composed of about 5 different things. It's by taking care of our customers, by being socially responsible and actively involved in our community, taking care of our work environment, taking care of our employees, basically. The 4th one was being an economically viable company. We certainly wanted to survive and thrive. And the last piece was by doing this with honesty, integrity, and respect. And, in our early days, I would say that I was really focused on the economic piece because it was really important for us as an organization to have enough money to open each day. But as we got to a point where I understood that we were going to be financially solvent, I really began to focus more on taking care of our customers, taking care of our employees, being involved in the community. And what I found is that the more I focused on those things, the better off we were financially. And it was really an interesting awakening to me that when you focus on the financial component only, you many times give up the other aspects of the company that are so important to who you are and to what you stand for. And I know bits and pieces about EarthFare and what they happened to them prior to Mike taking over, but they were owned by an equity company. And I'm not saying in any way to diss what EarthFare was doing before Mike took it back over again. But, at some point when you're owned by an equity company, typically there's a 5 or 7 year period when you try to resell it. And at times, if the equity company main goal is to only sell, they're going to try to get the highest dollar. And sometimes what happens is they forego taking care of their main core, not taking care of the customers or taking care of their staff, and forget what got them to where they were. And the reason why I bring all this up is about the mission statement and the Bill of Rights, is that, whether you're listening to this as a retailer or as a vendor or a distributor, you really got to dig deep and find out who you are and what you want to accomplish. I mean, what is it that you want to, for not only for you, because I can tell you that that each one of us, as we grow our business as an entrepreneur, are going to be faced with enormous challenges, and it's going to be easy to fall and not get up. And unless you, combined with having a passion for what you're doing, unless you have a direction of where you want to go, it's going to be easy to give up. And Gary, I'm sure, and I think I recall reading something about one time when you were kind of on the cusp of, I think you had a major, you had to, a huge order, and you had very little money or something, and I think UNFI or Whole Foods bailed you out, or otherwise you were going to kind of crumble at the last second. But you had a passion for what you were doing. You believed in what you were doing, and you had a goal, and it kind of pulled you through because you had all that as part of who you were. And so for all those people out there listening, it's really important to develop that habit and be clear on what that is. And sometimes, you do things that are totally, that seemingly don't make sense. So I think Gary referred to that we've been a strong proponent of the non-GMO project. And it was probably 10 years ago when I got involved in it. And one of the things we decided at the time was that I made the decision that we weren't going to support any we weren't going to bring in any new items that contained any at-risk GMO ingredients. And my buyer at the time came to me and said, "You're shooting yourself in the foot." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, if a new product comes out and we don't carry it, then the customer is going to go to, Whole Foods, Sprouts, or whoever, and we're going to be losing out on the competition." And I said, that's okay, because this is who we are and this is what we stand for. And, that's, we just got to be true to our core. And it was interesting because what happened, if we told our story right, when a customer would ask for a new product, what it did develop was more loyalty by the customer because they trusted us to do the right thing. And it wasn't intended that way, but by doing what we thought was the right thing to do, it created greater customer loyalty. When we had our flagship store, we moved it about 100 yards, and we opened it up in September of 2020. And about a year before we opened up, I talked to my COO and I said, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And I said, one of the things that I want to do is I want to get rid of water in single-serve plastic containers. And for those of you who are on the retail side as retailers, I would venture to say that if you look at your top 100 selling items, that probably 25% of them is water in plastic. And, so my CEO kind of like rolled his eyes and said, "Really, is this what you want to do?" And I said, "Yeah." And we had some delays, and I think he kind of was thinking that maybe it might get a little bit put to the side. And then, probably 6 months before we were ready to open, we had to create our, how we were going to merchandise the store. And I said, "Well, we're not going to sell any water in plastic at all." And to his credit, he embraced it. And it was antithetical to, if you were really wanting to make money, not to be selling water in plastic at all. But our customers embraced it. They really reacted positively to that. We haven't done it at all our stores, but we're planning on having it done at all our stores by July. And what we found also is that we sell now more water and more volume of water at this flagship store than we did prior to getting rid of it. So it was definitely a learning experience, and a piece of saying, hey, stick to what you believe in and stay true to it. And I think in this day and age, as more and more stores, the conventional stores are moving more into carrying natural, and some of the natural stores are moving more towards the bringing in some of the conventional products. We keep on pushing towards the outer edge, and it's primarily because it's who we are and what we believe in, but probably as an added benefit, it differentiates ourselves from the other retailers. We really are pushing on the edge. We are now, when I got into this, and I hate to admit, Gary's right, I've been doing this for way, way, way too many years. People didn't know what organic was. And we had to educate people about organic, and it was a slow process. When I opened my first store, half my produce section was conventional, and half of it was organic. Now, 100% of our produce section is organic. 100% of our bulk is organic. Probably 98% of the ingredients we use in our deli is organic. And now we're on the road to looking at using regenerative, which I think is organic 30 years ago, and to be regenerative, as Gary and I talked about yesterday, you have to have the core of being organic, but it's much more than that. And so we keep on pushing the outer edge around that. We are looking for products that have regenerative ingredients in it, and we are going to highlight them, and we're going to educate our customers around that. We look at fair trade as being a key piece of the quality of the ingredients that we want. And so as a retailer or a manufacturer, part of what I'm saying now is part of what I would say is the Jimbo story. And I think for retailers and manufacturers, you have to figure out what it is your story. What is it that you want to tell the customers? And what all these surveys have found out, that people nowadays are willing to pay more for products that have added value, that have a story behind it. And there's so many stories to tell. And I think part of that is for everyone to decide, to figure out what is it their story, what is that they stand for, and to stick to it. And so that's how we got to where we are today. There's been a lot, as Mike has gone through, in regards to what's happened in the past year plus with COVID. We've had some major challenges, and the challenges have been incredibly hard on our staff. We would have one day where we would have customers come in and say, I can't believe you're allowing your employees to have a mask that's dipped below their nose. And then an hour later, we would get emails that, from someone saying, I can't believe you're not allowing me to come in without a mask. I have a precondition. And there was no win. I used to think that I could take any customer and figure out a way to satisfy them. And I got to a point for the first time that I realized there's no way to do that when you got people on opposite sides of the fence. And the people that I had to really commend were the frontline staff that had to deal with this every day. It was challenging. And I will say that our business has actually increased significantly. And, to the point where, we raised the minimum wage in the stores. We gave out additional bonuses. And if I have time, I may go into that a little bit more. But as part of, looking back every year or two, we take a look at who we are as an organization and what we want to accomplish. And in the light of what's happened during COVID, one of the things that we really settled on that we want to look forward for the next couple of years is we just put it under one word, which was sustainability. And that is sustainability in regards to environmental sustainability. We could put food waste under that. We could people sustainability around that, and safety around that. And that's our whole focus, for the next 2 to 3 years, as to how to accomplish that. We're looking, even going to some aspects of defining, if a new vendor wants to present us products, we're going to have preconditions as to how the product gets to us. That if there's excess certain kinds of packaging, we will not accept it, because we want to be part of the solution and not contribute to the problem. And so there'll be products that people will send we will not take into consideration because they're not sent to us in the packaging that we're requesting. I mentioned that, we're going to be focused on regenerative. Food waste is so big, and for all retailers, it's hard. I mean, to Mike's point, the one positive is in COVID that you didn't have as much food service, but we're big on food service, and we're throwing food away, and part of it is to reduce the food waste for us, but part of it also is to make sure that if we can't use it, that there's so many people out there that are hungry, how do we get it into the mouths of those people that are hungry, so that we're doing our part to, feed people that need the food. We just don't want to be, throwing food away and it's going into the landfill or wherever it's going. We want to say, before it goes back, can we give it to somebody that's going to use it, that's going to feed someone that's hungry? So we're looking at that. We're looking at, what can we do as an organization to make sure what we call people sustainability, that our staff feels engaged and understands who we are and what we're trying to do, and how do we educate them, and how do we get them excited about what we're trying to do? How do we make them feel like they have opportunities? And so we're really focused on, this whole sustainability piece that, many years ago we were looking at sustainability just in the vein of agriculture, but it really goes beyond that. So, it really has become an incredible focus for us. It's a lot of energy around that. We have a designated sustainability coordinator, and we're, but they have to work hand in hand with operations to make things happen. We're trying to get rid of as much plastic as possible. We're trying to figure out how to get our bulk. Because we can't sell bulk items in our bulk bins anymore, we have to package it, and we're packaging it mostly in plastic containers. And now we're trying to look at various different opportunities to put it in a lined paper bag with a window and other options. So there's a lot of work being done around that. So I think the other piece I would say is, as Mike alluded to when he talked about his relationships with the vendors and the distributors, is just a general sense of gratitude for all the work that they've had to do during this past year plus in dealing with situations. And Caroline, if you can, I guess I can point to, one of the things that we did at the end of the year, this memo that I wrote to the staff in regards, it kind of did an overview of what I was saying, and it's a lot of verbiage there, but basically it was saying this is what we did during the entire year. We raised our minimum wage to $15. We increased the bonus to 1.5 times each quarter, and we during Thanksgiving we gave every staff member who was full-time a $100 gift card. And then at the end of the year, what we did, which no one expected, went back, and for all the frontline people, we gave everyone 50 cents an hour for every hour they worked. So if you were a full-time employee and you worked 2,000 hours, that was $1,000 that our staff got. And what really struck me around that was the impact that that had on our staff. And I don't think I totally recognized the number of people in the grocery business and the frontline staff that really live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, you read about it, but it didn't strike me until then, because what I was told was that when people got the check, they said, "Wow, this is, you know, phenomenal. This is great. I'm going to be able to get, you know, my car repaired that I needed to get repaired, or I needed a tire here, or I'm going to get a TV that I always wanted, or something like that." And it really struck me, you know, the level at which people who, you know, come in and work in your stores, you know, every day and put so much energy into it, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. And, you know, the part that I was really focused on, though, and I don't know if you can blow that up, is the second to last paragraph, where I said, there are no strings attached to this bonus, but I do have one ask of all of you. I know that in the past, when we adjusted compensation, that I get a lot of thanks, and I do, because people see my name on it and they think, you know, rightfully or wrongly, that I'm to blame or get the credit. And I said it's always much appreciated. However, my ask is that this additional bonus that you give your thanks to your peers, your supervisors, and most of all to yourself, because you all deserve it. And that's the way what I really feel, that these people who work for you, and I don't even say work for me, I work with me, deserve so much credit to be part of what the journey that I'm on, that Jimbo's is on, and to be able to participate and reward them for the work that they do is just a great feeling. So, you know, again, to what Mike was saying, the feeling of gratitude, you know, it's been a rough year for everyone. I don't know anybody who can say that, wow, this has been a wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, our business was our best year we've ever had, and I would throw it all away to be able to have a life that, you know, I mean, life changes, but to be able to do some of the same things that I used to be able to do and not worry about, you know, the COVID, I'd give it all away in a heartbeat. So I think that kind of covers a little bit of history and where we're at and where we're going. And now you all know why Mike got back into the retail business. He's still trying to find his competitor that has the money in his mattress.
You know, I hope Mike has used the 20 minutes to come up with a good rumor about you too. Otherwise we will start one. But seriously, thank you. And just before I flip this to Corinne, I just want to say, you know, thanks to you both. I mean, you're the reason many of us are in this business. You know, the heart and the appreciations that you express, but also, you know, the values that underlie. And I mean, you both haven't quite said these words, but let's just say it. I mean, that's also your competitive advantage, because after all, it's also a cutthroat business, as my co-moderator here knows as well as anyone. So Corinne, let me flip it to you for some questions with these guys.
Great. Thanks, Gary. So this has actually been a great pleasure for me, because usually Mike and Jimbo are picking on me. So it's really great to be out of the middle of that space. But I'll tell my own little story about both these guys, which is what in the past 4 or 5 years, when we've had the chance to meet up in person at different industry events, the conversation generally has been around, so when are you going to retire? Something that we're all kind of like, you know, talking to each other about, and we're kind of all in that age range of possibilities. But what I love about this, it's so evident in the group that's here presenting today, is that I think we all feel so strongly that our work isn't done and that we love our work. And so we continue to do it. And retirement, as much as it sounds like a great idea, we keep showing back up and keep being willing to carry that torch a little bit further. So I just want to say,
Yeah, in our house, we say retire means you get new tires. So yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So Jimbo, you talked a lot about where your current values sit, and where you're enhancing those values because you've always held those values, but you're just doubling down on them. One of the things I didn't hear you talk about that I think people would be interested to hear is how are you communicating that out to your customers? And how are you working with your team to understand how to communicate that out to your customers?
So the piece that I was talking about is sustainability. We've been talking internally for about, I'd say, 6 weeks, and we're formatting the goals and direction and what we want to attain and how. And so we have, as part of that, we're creating the communication piece to our customers and to our staff. Right now it's just high-level discussion. We recognize that it's not going to go anywhere until we're able to communicate that to our staff and it's embraced by the staff, and so that we can communicate to our customers. So that is part of where we're headed, and the piece that we need to, it's clearly on the agenda as to how do we get this messaging out. I've had discussions with our director of produce in regards to, looking at labeling for regenerative, and, it's just another label, but now we got to communicate, what does that mean, because we feel like it's important to, label regenerative and not to take away anything from organic, because like I said, our entire produce department is 100% organic, but we are in the process of developing it. And so the strategies are in process. It hasn't been done yet because we haven't completed the entire overview of where we're going. You guys got an insight before they have.
Great, thanks. And I would just add to that, Jimbo, one thing that I think I'd love to see you do is really highlight and illustrate your living wage process to the community who is making an assumption that a business can't do that. So I think that, there's a lot of good work that you continually have to do. Mike, I've got a question for you. And this has to do, you alluded to the fact that EarthFare is working on, I would say, reinvigorating your relationship with the vendor community, putting new breath into the brand. And EarthFare has gone through a lot of iterations. So I think it's incredibly brave of you and incredibly exciting to see you want to pick up this brand and continue to keep it out there in the community as what it was intended to do as it was birthed initially. So I'm curious about with customers, how you are reinvigorating that message as well, simply because there's, places where EarthFare, the last version, I'm calling it now EarthFare version 2.0, wasn't as responsive to its customers either. And so I'm wondering if there's anything you want to tell the group that around that we could help and support you with, and what you're thinking about in that space.
I'm just really a true partnership with vendors and brokers, so we can get products out in a realistic co-op funding type arrangement that we don't. And I think what the old company was doing was changing brands very quickly for the upfront funds and things like that, and really upset customers, dramatically when they get used to a brand and the brand's gone next week because somebody overbid them for that product. So just a true, like I said, we think we can get new items out into the market very quickly. We're behind that 200%, and just you can talk about a partnership, but really believe it's a partnership with our manufacturers and brokers.
It's can I just say, as a vendor, it's really true. And I've often said in these webinars, when I started in the business, back in Jimbo and Corinne were there too, you had pretty much of a year to prove yourself, your items. I mean, more or less, if they were real dogs, I guess you didn't, but boy, now so many retailers use these algorithms, right? And they're like, running numbers, telling you like 2 weeks in, you're not going to make it. And so many of the attendees here are, well, I'll just say, so many of them are wondering for both of you how to present new items to you. So it would be good if you could comment on that. But also, there's so many are wondering, how much time do they really have to prove themselves? So I'd love to ask you to drill a little bit into that response to Corinne's question. Just, what do you, how do you guys evaluate and make the determination? How much time does somebody with a new item really get?
I mean, we give them, I mean, justification of time on movement and things like that. We'll watch it very closely. I mean, we haven't really had a chance to dig into that much right now, but giving a customer a new opportunity for that, I think is and the vendor that opportunity to see if that product makes it, you know, whether it's through sampling or events like that, or ad features, or our email list, or the new item promotional vehicle that we're going to have.
Yeah. And how, and just while you're talking, because since people are asking you directly, how do people, what is the best way to get new items in front of your team?
The best way with, I mean, they're looking for just any kind of information they can get right away. I mean,
Yeah, they're asking, you know, I mean, there's 3 or 4 people asking, you know,
The logistics, Mike, the logistics of like the.
how do they present to your buying team?
yeah, I mean, just email information on the product, and our directors are getting, you know, tons of product coming in every day. So, I mean, just they want to see what the product is, how it adds to the category, is a true variety of product is what we're looking for, probably mainly, not just all these line extensions. A really true unique product is what we're looking for.
Okay. And Jimbo, what about
You
you?
can send a mattress with some money in it to Mike, and that'll get his attention.
Get them attention.
Mike doesn't get to make those decisions these days, right? It's Mitch and it's Gavin. That's what you want to get a hold of the EarthFare.
And we have
How
some.
about you, Jimbo? I mean, what
I
give
mean, we have our buyers, and you know, I think the first thing that anybody who wants to sell us something would be to take a look at our ingredient standards, because they're pretty detailed. And so if you know, like if it just contains regular sugar, we won't carry it. It has to contain organic sugar. That's one of the big things that people you know, we don't get products, we don't carry any products that have regular sugar in it. You know, if the item doesn't contain any organic ingredients, you know, we do allow that to happen. But, you know, for example, if we carry all our bulk items are organic, and somebody has a packaged nut that's not organic but sprouted, it's going to be challenging to get it into our stores, because we'll say, well, we would ask that you, you know, switch to organic. And I will say, you know, like what Mike mentioned, you know, we've had many companies switch because they wanted to get into our stores. We, you know, we stick to the standards. We don't, you know, say, well, you know, it's rare that we will not stick, you know, hold to the high degree that we want to, because that's just who we are. And so, you know, there's, it can be challenging, but there are manufacturers who want to get in, and they will modify. And, you know, the one thing that, I guess there's 2 things. One of the things that I realized, you know, I used to think that we would be able to, you know, we were, and I believe we're competitive on price, but we're never going to be the lowest price store. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you know, with stores like Walmart and Target and Costco carrying a lot of the natural food products, there's just no way that we're going to be able to compete on the price on, you know, as a whole. In general, yes, but as a whole, no. And probably our produce competes competitively on produce. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's not all about price. Customers, you know, choose their, you know, their stores somewhat. Some people do it on price, but there's this whole added value piece that customers want to choose, and they want to spend their money in organizations, hopefully that, you know, reflects their values. And so that's what we're trying to, you know, communicate to our customers, that we reflect their values and what they believe in. And so we're not going to, you know, always be the lowest price, but we'll be competitively priced. But if you do the rest of your shopping there, you'll get items that you probably won't find in other stores. And so we're looking for unique products. We're looking for items that you can't get in Target or Walmart. We want to, you know, we want to showcase items that, you know, that you'll only find in Jimbo's and maybe other natural food retailers, not that you can find anywhere, or in Amazon. I mean, how are we going to compete on price with Amazon? That's not probably going to happen. And so how do we differentiate? And again, that speaks to what I was saying before, is we're going to the outer edge. And at some point, we're going to have to jump. And as they say, hopefully the parachute will appear. Otherwise, we're just going to fall.
So I want to grab that for a minute, Gary, because I hear this all the time, and I've heard this for years, and we've tried to come up for solutions around unique products and individual products. And yet there's also what I would say logistical challenges for emerging brands and the retailers who desire to support these unique products. And oftentimes it's like, so my question for the two of you, and I want to hear from both of you from your companies, is what is your tolerance for direct versus distribution? Because oftentimes the barrier can be, you have to be in distribution to get in, so there's this, so talk a little bit about what you're willing to do in order, you as the retailer are willing to do to get those unique products on the shelf as well. Because there's an inherent tension here that we know is not necessarily logistically efficient and hard to do. So I'd be curious to hear from both of you on that.
Yeah, and you want me to go? In previous times, my prior time with EarthFare, we'd have our own warehouse, and we were able to, go to Expo West and find new items that we could buy direct, and how long the process takes with the major wholesalers. And so we were able to do that and really get ahead of the curve. So we were very effective on bringing those successful items from the West Coast to the East Coast quickly and getting them on the shelf. That worked very well for us. But I think really we look for items with stories to them. We love, example would be the Bragg's family, that product line. We love telling that story and sharing that with our new customers who walk in the store. That's what we want to do more of, the grass-fed beef and where it comes from. So that's more of what we look for in new items.
Mm-hmm. And Jimbo?
Yeah, I would say that if we're talking local, we have some local distributors that if we ask them to pick up a product, they would pick it up for us. Certainly distribution is an issue, but there are some, there's 3 or 4 local distributors that are valued partners that if we say, hey, we really think there is this is something we could support, that they would do that for us. If it's not local, and sometimes even when it's local, if there's enough volume that we think we can generate, we can go to our primary or secondary distributor and ask them to pick up the product. And the challenge there is that it's a longer process. It's not as quick and fast, but it will happen eventually. And sometimes what happens is, the local folks will pick it up, and then the national distributors will pick it up afterwards, and then we have a decision to make. Who do we support from there? Because we want to continue to support the local distribution, but the pricing is so much different, and so that is the challenge in and of itself. But if there's a local product that meets our ingredient standards and that we think reflects our values, we will go out of our way to support them and try to pick it up. We even try to give them a special pricing structure so that we can introduce it at a lower margin than we typically would use for that product.
And then one other side of this too is, 2020 created this need for so many retailers to pivot and really double down on omni-channel solutions, right? Whether it be, Mike, you mentioned that you were doing Instacart, click and collect. Jimbo, I'm guessing you probably have some of that in your organization as well. But I'm curious about what your go forward plans are around the omni-channel solutions for your companies, and including like direct to consumer thoughts, just what are you thinking and how you're going to continue to integrate these technology options with your stores? Silence.
So we've been with
I've never got you guys to silence before.
Well, I think Mike is tired of going first, and he wants to be able to yell at me after I go. So I'll go first. You know, our Instacart volume went from being about 1.5% to 2% of our sales to about 7-8% of our sales during the pandemic.
Wow.
And it's at one point I think it was even over double digits, and but it settled in I think about 7-8%. But you know, I've read a lot of stuff about that. You know, Instacart has been a really good partner, but the challenge with Instacart is they get all the information, and now there's stories about they're starting their own warehouse and going to be distribution. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the other part is they own the relationship with the customer, and that, you know, may or may not reflect well on, you know, on your operation. It certainly isn't in my best interest to have the Instacart person be the Jimbo's face, and that is something we were trying to figure out a way around. And so we actually haven't, and we do our own curbside pickup, but it's a laborious process, and we're going through a series of different e-commerce solutions that we're looking at. I don't know if it's going to include the last mile or not, whether it'll just be pickup or we'll actually deliver. We're going through that process as we speak and trying to figure out what's the best solution. You know, while Instacart is maintained, the curbside pickup has dropped tremendously over the last few months as more and more people feel comfortable getting out and going shopping. Our customer count is probably, I wouldn't say it's back to where it was pre-pandemic, but it's getting there. But the average basket size is still significantly higher.
Well, and one of the advantages of being an independent, Jimbo, is you can come up with unique ways to solve for that too. You can partner with other types of delivery options. My local store here partnered with the local florist shop so that the florist shop is delivering the groceries too. So it's kind of a cool partnership. Mike, how about you guys?
Yeah. I mean, you know, of course we have Instacart and curbside, but you know, I walked into one of the big natural food retailers the other day on a Friday night about 6:30, and there was one cashier working. It's a big, beautiful store, and there were 14 people up front boxing up orders. You know, it really puzzles me on how can we build big stores and stock the groceries, and somebody takes them off and boxes them up and ships them out. So my focus is with things we have to have, but I would really make the store friendlier and more helpful. That's going to be our focus, making the store a happy place to come to, that you're checked out quickly, and push on that. I mean, we have all those services available, but that's not at the top of my list.
Great.
That's great. Hey, Mike, there's a very specific question for you here. How are you choosing store locations? Like what's your demographic screen?
Yeah, I mean, high education, you know, income levels, things like that. And of course, the ones we knew what the volumes of the stores that we acquired were, and we knew they were all successful now. But we're going to I'm looking at our number 28 store right now that looks like a real winner. It fits into the demographics and the income levels that we need. So, but we'll be a little more selective and go a little bit slower and catch our breath a little bit going on in the future. So if we open 4 to 5 stores in the next year after the 27 gets open, we'll be doing good.
And also, sorry. Oh, go ahead, Corinne.
No, I was going to say on top of that, Mike, too, we had a question around how is EarthFare making decisions about shelf placement, like by doors or whether it's company-wide? Do you have any advice or feedback you can give the audience on shelf placement for EarthFare?
Karen Lewis just joined us, and the HBC director, you know, a nice addition to the company. And Gavin, who worked with Fresh Time, has been with us since the beginning. Gavin Conkle is doing a great job of grocery using Unify planogram for that right now. So, and again, we've been slow in starting up the back office kind of thing. So they're aggressively going after that, but doing a very good job of what they're doing placement wise.
So both of you too, imported specialty, you know, we have a bunch of international folks. Imported specialty foods, do you both engage? Or is there any kind of local prioritization here?
Yeah, we're reaching out to. Any,
Go ahead, Mike.
no, we're reaching out to, and the old company Haddon House, we did a fantastic job on those types of products, and we're reaching out to any distributor like that. We think there's a great opportunity in that.
So our COO, Justin Jackson, who actually worked at EarthFare for a while, but was with Whole Foods, he has his degree is in specialty, and so he has an abundance of experience in cheeses and wines and specialty products. So whereas we were probably lacking in that arena prior to his joining the company, we are a lot more open to products coming from outside the States. I would say we're in the process of formulating our standards in regards to the aspect of bringing in products that right now you have, if it has, as I stated before, at-risk ingredients that has to have the non-GMO project seal on it. And in Europe, the standards are similar to the non-GMO project, but it's different. And so we've been kind of trying to figure out how to integrate their standards with our standards. But if it's organic, it's not a question.
Well, I do want to quickly comment. I happen to know on today's webinar, there's a bunch of New Zealanders, because as you know, I run this Entrepreneurship Institute in New Zealand every fall. And of course, with COVID, it's become more, New Zealand, Australia, the whole region. And as you may know, they're adopting or trying to adopt a national organic standard there. I mean, there's an incredibly wonderful array of beautiful organic products over there. But frankly, you guys can you can help yourselves and you can help these emerging suppliers. So we should talk about that at some point, just by virtue of communicating your own standards, your own list of no-nos. So we'll take that offline. There's
I
also
think that Corinne, Gary, I think Corinne sent me like 6 months ago a contact, or sent one of their vendors on a honey or a Manuka honey or something like that.
Yes. Corinne came to our last one, and we have a really cool array of folks. I mean, these are obviously items that you couldn't get here. You couldn't grow locally or produce. So somebody was asking you, Mike, about private label. Is that being handled by you or outsiders?
Yeah, we have an outside group that we're using for the private label, basically the same group that was involved in the past.
Okay.
But always looking for anything. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So I was curious about another kind of a question that, this last year has been really disruptive, right? And it's been really, really hard on retailers. And as Gary mentioned earlier, that supply chain was erratic, the ability to get access to products could be challenging from times, things of that nature. So I'm curious if that disruption that you've experienced has changed your thinking and your go forward plans, both for your companies and for particular categories or focuses where what kind of changes coming out of this do you see yourself making based on what you learned?
What I'm seeing, Corinne, is more grab and go, or more food service being produced and packaged and easily more of a safety approach to bulk foods and food service, and even with possibly the shortage of labor in the future too. Both those things could help. I think we're cutting our deli cases back maybe 8 feet and doing more grab and go, prepackaged things made in-house that go into the case.
Mm-hmm.
That's the major changes we're seeing. We think hot bars and salad bars will still be fine for us, as restaurants are opening back up for us.
And Jimbo?
Yeah, I think that the jury's still out as to what customers are going to expect and how they will shop. We're anxiously awaiting to be able to sell reopen our hot bar, our salad bar, to be able to put our items back in bulk. But that's us. We don't know how our customers will feel about shopping that. You know, what the concerns will be, whether over time it will dwindle and be back to where it was before, or it will never get back to that point. You know, there's optimism that it will be the way it was, but I got to believe there's going to be some customers that it's going to take a while for them to feel comfortable to shop in that do that kind of shopping. So, you know, it's interesting because, you know, if you're, you know, we're remodeling some of our stores and we're trying to figure out, well, do we do this or do we put a hot bar in? If it doesn't have one, do we put a salad bar? Well, all our stores have salad bars that just closed right now. And it's just, you know, an unknown right now. And we just take our best guess. You know, I think Mike made a point earlier that one of the things, the advantages on the COVID side, as he was opening stores, he didn't have to really address that issue because that probably is the hardest part of opening up a store, is getting your food service piece in line. And the fact that it was accepted that he wasn't going to have a hot bar and a reduced food service component probably made it that much easier in regards to hiring people, training people, getting the recipes, and, you know, dealing just with all the food service aspects that you're typically confronted with.
It's funny enough, speaking of New Zealand, a friend, Rob Simchik, who runs or who's part of Little Beauties, which Corinne has met. They do, you know, nutrient packed dried fruit, full range, organic, et cetera, et cetera. He's just wanting to drill in with both of you, and I think a few others have this. I mean, do you accept direct supply, or does everything need to come from distributors? That's what a few of these questions are about. So again, this is sort of combining the international question with the distribution.
We accept, you know, direct. I think the challenge in direct, especially international, is how much what the quantities are, and, you know, what the timeline is. I mean, do we order, you know, if we order today, is it going to take 1 week? Is it going to take 3 weeks? Is it going to take a month? And, you know, so it certainly is easier when there's distribution through your normal channels. But if the product meets our standards and the quality is, I would say, you know, if it's similar to something we currently have, there'd be no reason. But so it would have to be, right, you know, better than what we currently have for us to say, well, let's make this, you know, if there's a story to tell around it, that, you know, then yeah, you know, we're happy to do business with that. Yeah. You know, in that
case, I can tell you there is, but yeah. What about you, Mike?
Okay, the same thing. If all those things are correct, there's no barriers. We'll take it indirect.
Okay, cool. And you know, speaking of longtime retail friends, Scott Price got a question in here. I think some of you will know Scott from his Whole Foods days. Serenity Kids baby food, Mike, they were in all EarthFare locations prior to the early 2020 shift. Now in some stores, but not all, they're a leading velocity brand in the category. He's asking, how do they get into all stores? So
that should be an all store. Yeah. So contact Gavin. Say you talk to me. We'll take care of that.
All right, there you go, Scott. Right from the boss's mouth.
So Gary, I've got one I want to throw at them.
Yeah, go.
So there's a lot of conversation going on around product attributes, right? And Jimbo, you talked about your values and things of that nature, but there's, you know, the fastest growing, like, I don't know, 10 top numbers in spins are like paleo, keto, plant-based. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are seeing around product attributes at store level, briefly?
You just hit all of them.
Do you see,
yes,
like
you answered your own question?
Okay,
those are
well,
the same things that we're seeing. I'm seeing anyway.
Yeah.
Mhm. Anything you want to add?
Well, I want to press on that. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Yeah, you want to speak to it?
I just,
I would
could
just add
tell-
probiotic to that.
Mhm.
I just called Jimbo a couple of weeks ago and asked that same question to you. What's your focus on shelf labeling? Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to press on a variant of that because it's Jimbo, you know, this is my pet peeve. I love your characterization of regenerative as, you know, obviously as assuming organic. I mean, you can't have truly a regenerative system if you're using toxins that are, you know, killing off biodiversity.
Right.
But I don't understand why you don't just say regenerative organic. And putting it a little bit more bluntly, I mean, I think of you guys, both of you, all of you, frankly, as actually, I think of you as educators. You know, I've always thought of our retail partners as, you know, you see so many more consumers than, let's say, I do, that I view your store as a chance to not just receive consumer interest, but, you know, educate and bring the consumer's level of understanding up. So, I mean, can't you just sort of solve the regenerative problem as one of those 5, you know, areas that people are interested in by just calling it regenerative organic all the time?
It's a good question. You know, personally, I'm not as savvy on the political aspect of that. You know,
Yeah.
I know that there's this whole issue of organic, this hydroponics piece to it, regenerative piece to it. Last thing we need is another label.
Right. Right.
But,
Exactly.
and there's confusion around it. But I do believe, I mean, and then you got biodynamic. I mean, they're all, you know, pieces of, you know, trying to, I guess, use the word sustainable, you know,
Yeah.
and how do we educate the consumers as to what's the differentiation between all of them? And so that, again, to Corinne's question, you know, how are we communicating and how we, you know, and to your piece, you know, I mean, we are educators. That's the way I look at it is,
Yeah.
you know, it's informing people. I mean, the reason that I think the industry has grown so much is because we've educated. We've talked to people about the products and the value and the importance of, you know, not having chemicals in our food. And so, you know, we need to continue to do that and seek out better forms, if there are, of how to of the kinds of ingredients that we use in our foods.
Yeah. I mean, just another 15 seconds on this, just to say that you know, it's true, biodynamic has been around and so forth, but right now there is a risk in the organic space that a lot of companies are glomming onto this word regenerative as a kind of a workaround. Now, it's never going to happen in your case because you've laid out, you know, this is it. You know, you have to first be organic. But I think it's important with this sort of, you know, nom du jour that we all are united. So actually, and I'd love to talk to you about the politics, and we'll do that later. Here's a question for you both that I haven't seen. Oh, by the way, the fellow from New Zealand, Rob, is telling you he can supply you in 2 days. What kind of changes?
Send samples.
I have no interest in that. I just want you to be clear. That's not like me selling him. What kind of changes have you guys seen in the cough and cold category, symptom relief and prevention? That's interesting given the, you know, what we've come out of. You, any comments on that space?
Well, that's a tough one. I'm not as well versed on the wellness
it's pretty
category. I know that our buyers have focused on certain areas that initially, I mean, I think it goes in waves of what the latest suggestions are and what, you know, what we should carry. But I would be hesitant to kind of dive into that. I defer to someone much smarter than I am.
Okay. Or closer to it.
In the last few minutes that we have here, Gary, we had a really big question come in, which I think is really would be good to hear from Mike and Jimbo, their thoughts on this. It's something we've all talked about a lot and intimately. But where do you guys see independence in the next, you know, 5 to 10 years? As retailers, brick and mortar retailers.
Go ahead, Jimbo.
Go, Mike.
I just think they're
Yeah, you
very
go ahead.
strong. I mean, the advantage of an independent retailer is that they're so much closer to the customer. That's what I think is the real key. And I spend most of my time in the stores. I love getting in the stores and talking to people and talking to managers to find out the real deal, what's really going on. And I just think independents have that ability to over exceed and do a much better job. A one store operator, if they're close to that customer, much closer.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's going to be much difference than it's been in the past. Beyond that, I think the competition is going to be that much more challenging because you're going to have stores like Amazon that are going to compete. They're coming out with their own private label now. And I think for independents to thrive, and I think there's the opportunity because, as Mike said, they are much closer to the customer, hopefully much more nimble, that they have to deal with, I mean, they've got to clearly state their story, who they are, what they stand for, and they got to be nimble on their feet in regards to bringing in products ahead of, if they're the last one to bring in a product and are behind, the Walmarts and Targets, and then they bring it in later, it's going to be tough. And so they have to be on top of their game. We have to be on top of our game to be ahead of the curve, to be the ones on the forefront. And that's the way it has been in the past. But as the competition has grown stronger and stronger, other companies are putting forth, a desire to bring in emerging brands. And so we have to be on our game. And it's going to be one of those areas that if you are, then you'll continue to not only survive, but thrive. And if you're not, I think it's going to be very challenging, even more so than it has in the past, to survive.
Yeah.
Yep. We've seen so many numbers focused on digital and digital growth and e-commerce growth and omni-channel growth. And yet relatively, when you look at the growth opportunity there was so much room to grow there, but it's still a very small percentage of the grocery dollar sales overall.
Yes.
And I believe that people will continue to seek out and desire their local grocers and especially their independent grocers as a lifestyle.
Amen. And really, you were right, Corinne. That was a great way to sort of wrap. We're at our time, and it gives me the opportunity to say the main reason I wanted to close with these, East and West Coast, two legendary independents. And you guys, I thank you because you really underscored the difference here. I mean, the rigid adherence to standards, the continuous improvement of standards, your focus on your people, your appreciation of, because you're not just close to the consumer, you're close to your folks. And what I want to say in kind of wrapping this session to the audience and wrapping this series is that, this is where we change the food industry. I mean, I couldn't help hearing, Mike, you mentioning you were in one of the big supernaturals. I mean, of course, you guys are out looking, but they're looking at you and not even naturals. I mean, the biggest of the big. Everybody on this call knows, Kroger, Safeway, Publix, Wegmans, where are they checking out what's happening? It's you. And so that's why this underscoring of this point that you're not just educating consumers, you're educating the trade. And so it's so important that we all, as suppliers to you, as folks from whether domestic or abroad, understand that you're not just like a great place to get started. In fact, Pat Sheridan and Ben Nauman from Infra and NCG declared in our webinar 5 weeks ago, if you're at Publix already, don't come see us. I mean, they were, really saying start with us. But not only is it a great place to start because of all the reasons all three of you just said, but it's the right place to start. It's the place to test the proposition, work with folks who will work with you as a supplier and show the rest of the world that these new ideas that you've been pioneering forever, Jimbo, and well, all three of you have been pioneering, are viable. This is the place to do it. So I have enormous appreciation for what you do every day and also for you joining us today. So thank you for that. And Carlene, if you could just post the last slide for a second while I'm kind of on our closing roll here. I just want to remind everybody, this is the end of our series. If you have feedback for Jimbo, for Mike, for Corinne, send it to us. We've also posted their contact info. I mean, there's been an invitation here to reach out to them directly, but use us. Let us know what when we resume our webinars, what topics you would like to drill into. If there's something one of these guys or Karina said that you want to, explore more deeply, that's what we're here to do. We're here to help grow our sector and our grow entrepreneurship. And then finally, go ahead to the next, Carlene. I just want to underscore that we do have this amazing opportunity, thanks to our incredible sponsors. This is only $50 now to join for 3 days. Our institute, May 5th, 6th, and 7th. You can come and go. At $50, you can come for an hour and get your money's worth. Our first day is cases. You're welcome to submit on financing. If you've got a financing challenge, if you've got a cash flow challenge, we've got this absolutely awesome panel like the folks you just heard from today, who will look at your case. And if you don't submit a case, come listen, because we're all trying. This is how we learn, from actual storytelling. The second day is about telling your brand story and focusing on e-commerce. Obviously, we have retailers as part of the panel, like you've been getting some coaching and advice today from these folks. And then reminder that on the last day, on Friday, 13 companies will be selected from applicants to pitch. And we've got now, I counted last night, 41 investors, from little angels to big funds. And so please, if you're trying to raise, if you're looking for capital so that you can, gear up to sell at Jimbo's or EarthFare, then, this is a great opportunity not only to pitch for capital, but also to watch others pitch on the front lines. And then I just draw your attention to the right side of the screen. We've got fabulous speakers. Denise and Lisa are just two absolutely exciting, innovative, rising women leaders in entrepreneurs, with pioneering some really interesting products and strategies, very much social entrepreneurs with real missions. Danny Meyer, as of course, like Jimbo and Mike, been through, one hell of a year, right? Being in the restaurant business. So he's going to come back, and he joined us a year ago going into COVID. He's going to come back and talk about how they're emerging from COVID. And Walter Robb is going to talk a lot about innovation and sort of some of the topics that he covered last week, but in a little bit more detail. So I hope you'll register. I hope you'll spread the word. And again, I just want to thank my colleagues here today for joining us. Any last quick comment from any of you three?
Well, thanks for having me, Gary. I thank you for making me feel so old by talking about how long I've been in the industry. But I suggest that no matter how old you are, you can still ask the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And lastly, for all the people that are still listening, go to your nearest mattress store and see if you can find Mike's mattress that has all the money in it, so you can get him out of retail again.
Mike, any last word from you? You get the last word with Jimbo, which is rare.
That is rare, because he'll come back on me very quickly. So I thank you. I thank Jimbo for being easy on me. He has a lot of other stories he could have shared with me. So I thank Jimbo.
That is true. I did. You paid me well.
Glad to be on your event, and willing to help work with anybody that wants to contact me.
Well, thank you. Listen, we're pulling for both of you. And Corinne, any last comments from you?
I just wanted to say thank you as well. I got to say, I'm really glad that Jimbo and Mike aren't trying to talk me into some new endeavor that they talked me into in 2004 when they wanted me to push a boulder up a hill with infra. But, I think this is really where it's at, and we have to all continue to innovate with heart and with purpose. And we've all got a lot of work still to do in that arena. So you're here.
Indeed. We have a world to save. It is, after all, burning up. We're toxifying. We're working on, as a country, on the wrong side of the health equation by not focusing on preventative. And that's what our guests today are all about: preventative health, sustainability, equity, and And I think also just recognize the power in all of us to do good, which we can do with our purchase dollars, whether we're buying mattresses or organic food. So thank you all very much. Thanks to everybody for joining. And again, keep an eye on the Hirshberg Entrepreneurship Institute site, and we will resume our series after the HEI, late May or early June. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.